Tonight, two issues driving Nigeria's politics and foreign relations. First, the United States airstrikes on terrorist hideouts in northwest Nigeria, precisely Sokoto. We examine what this means for Nigeria's terror fight, national sovereignty, and unity. Supporters say the strikes show deeper security cooperation. Critics warn of diplomatic fallout, loss of control, and strain on national cohesion. And joining us is national security management scholar as well as a political scientist, Dr. Ayokunle Fagbemi. You are welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Compliments of the season.
Thank you. Then local politics. The planned defection of Kano State Governor Abba Kabir Yusuf from the NNPP to the APC is shaking the Kwankasiya movement. Some allies say it is a move to protect 2027 interests. Others loyal to the Kwankasiya leadership call it a betrayal. We'll unpack the cracks with a key figure in the movement, Honorable Bilya Ahmad Rurum, who will later join us live from Kano via Zoom. But first, some major developments in the polity.
Several parts of Nigeria went dark on Monday after the national grid collapsed. The Nigeria Independent System Operator, NISO, confirmed the collapse in a post on X, saying power supply dropped sharply to just 50 megawatts as recovery work began. NISO, which manages power flow to distribution companies, said only Abuja and Ibadan had electricity at the time of filing this report. This is a steep fall from the 3,660 megawatts recorded on Sunday, December 28, 2025. The Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, has denied claims that he promised President Bola Tinubu to weaken the People's Democratic Party ahead of the 2027 election. The denial follows fresh tension within the PDP after Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde accused Wike of making such a pledge. Speaking during an end-of-the-year media chat on Monday, Wike described the allegation as false, adding that Makinde was frustrated and unwilling to openly state his own presidential ambition. FCT Minister Nyesom Wike says Rivers State Governor Siminalaya Fubara's defection from the PDP to the APC came too late to matter politically. Wike said the move lacked structure, noting that before Fubara left the PDP, about 22 local government chairmen and nearly half of the Rivers State House of Assembly members had already joined the APC. He added that the governor failed to move key political players with him. The Kano State chairman of the New Nigeria People's Party, Hashim Dungurawa, says the party has not approved any plan for Governor Abba Yusuf to defect to the APC. In a radio program monitored by Premium Times, Dungurawa said neither the NNPP leadership nor its leader Rabiu Kwankwaso backed the rumored move. He described it as a betrayal of Kano voters who elected the NNPP into power, saying it was wrong to join a party that was defeated at the polls.
Shafiu Suleiman there with major developments in the polity. And now, Dr. Hakim Baba Ahmed with State of the Nation.
President Tinubu traveled out of Nigeria yesterday to Europe to complete his end-of-year holiday. We understand from there he's going to travel to UAE. Our president left the country in a very high level of excitement and concern. A few days ago, on Christmas Eve, the US sent some weapon into Nigeria, which landed in parts of Kwara State and Sokoto. And since then, the country has been engulfed in debates and arguments and quarrels over the utility and the value of that attack. There are conflicting reactions to this. There are Nigerians who legitimately believe that Nigeria has failed to deal with insecurity in many, many forms and gases, and therefore it is acceptable and tolerable to live with the involvement of the Americans. And on the other hand, there are many Nigerians who are outraged by the fact that a foreign country has been allowed to come into our country and assault our sovereignty, our territorial integrity, and our right to defend ourselves. Beyond these arguments, there are a lot of complex issues. Now that the dust appears to have been settled, yes, we opened the door. Yes, we have lived with insecurity for a long time. Yes, you can't entirely blame a U.S. president looking for areas where he can boost his domestic support. There are people who are very worried about the framing of the reasons why the U.S. is involved in this in terms that are offending and offensive to Nigeria. Nigeria says they contributed and they participated in the decision to send bombs or whatever it is that was sent to Sokoto. And it did this in the interest of seeking for assistance and collaboration with the U.S. The U.S., on the other hand, is insisting that they did this in support of Christians that are undergoing genocide. The U.S. position is fundamentally divisive and false. It is not attacking places where Christians are being killed. Its assault has not yielded the kind of results that would send signals to all the sundry assaults in the northwest, in the southeast, in north central, in the southeast, that Nigeria's territory is going to be safe because the U.S. has assumed responsibility for protecting us. Those who are offended by the fact that the U.S. is still framing this assault as protecting Christians are offended by the fact that the U.S. is deepening the fault line between Muslims and Christians. There are Nigerians who think it doesn't matter how the U.S. frames this, it doesn't matter what language they use, so long as they bring this insecurity in this country to an end, we shouldn't bother about sovereignty and integrity and the state of our military forces or their perception of the fact that our leadership can invite a foreign power into our country to do what the military should do and hasn't done. So this leaves a number of questions. One is, what do we expect from the US now? Are we handing over the fight against sundry sources of insecurity forever, for as long as they wish? Against Lakurawa, against ISWAP, against Boko Haram, against IPOB, against many sources of insecurity in the middle belt of this country? Is the US now our defender? Is the US going to become a permanent partner, or is it going to assume the responsibility of military? This is a fundamental question that needs to be answered. Secondly, how do Muslims and Christians react to a situation where a foreign country defines our insecurity purely in terms of religious tones and therefore decides to champion the cause of one faith against another one? Are we comfortable with this framing of this problem? Are we happy with what is going on? Thirdly, what is the responsibility of our leadership? All along, Mr. President has kept quiet over this issue. We've seen the Minister of Foreign Affairs say, yes, Nigeria agreed, yes, Nigeria was consulted, and yes, Nigeria welcomes the bombing of parts of Nigeria. But President Tinubu himself has said nothing. And we are still waiting for evidence that this attack has yielded some kind of result that should encourage Nigerians and perhaps President Trump's constituency in the US that they are punishing Nigeria. We need to hear from our president what are the implications of this monumental development where a country like Nigeria concedes to a foreign country the right to attack, violate our sovereignty and our integrity and our capacity to defend ourselves. If we have become so weakened that America has to come in, we want to hear from our president. Is America now the guide and the protector of our security? Are we going to live under American whims and caprices? Whenever America thinks there are Nigerians who are at risk, America can come in and bomb us. We need some answers to some of these questions. President Tinubu is out of the country. When he comes back, he should talk to us and speak to us and tell us what are the implications of American involvement in our internal affairs.
Dr. Hakim Baba Ahmed with State of the Nation. And back here in the studio, as I said earlier, is Dr. Ayokunle Fagbemi, a political scientist and national security management scholar. Once again, welcome to our studio.
Thank you very much.
I will summarize the State of the Nation anchored by Dr. Hakim entirely pauses. Probably we'll be lucky you will answer some of the questions that he posed because it's the major subject of discussion today. How did you view Trump's intervention on behalf of the United States in Nigeria?
You know, I'm so happy that my brother and senior colleague, Hakim Baba Ahmed, provided the leadership to set the tone for our conversation. Most of the arguments and discourse out there have not been able to situate Nigeria-US relationships in the proper context. Nigeria and US started a journey of interacting in 1960, when the United States did not only recognize Nigeria as a sovereign state, but was excited to quickly establish diplomatic ties. Between 1960 and 2025, 65 odd years, and we've really made significant progress in terms of the interaction and the kind of respect that we have one for another. When you look at the subject of the concerns about the sovereignty of the Nigerian state regarding interventions, it is rooted in the United Nations Charter of 1945. That instrument is already 80 years old. But between those 80 years till date, we've had situations where the instrument are being reviewed in such a manner that you now have protocols, treaties, and principles that is helping us. Either we started from the angle where there should be non-interference, non-intervention in state parties to the United Nations Charter. That means that you're talking about their sovereignty, you just do not go in there. But after a while, there was now a need to move away from non-intervention to non-indifference, meaning that we are concerned about what goes on in your territory, and the international community reserves the right to intervene if there is a need to be involved in as much as humanity is concerned. And so we ended up by 2005 with the responsibility to protect protocols and instruments that Nigeria is a state party to. And the responsibility to protect says, one, every sovereign state has a responsibility to deal decisively with crimes, criminalities, and insecurity and security breaches within their territory in as much as it pertains to their citizens. Failing which, the international community can come in using the auspices of intergovernmental relations at the multilateral level, but occasionally with cooperation and assistance by bilateral institutions. Now, if that is clearly understood, the Nigeria-US relationship is again developed to the level that, apart from being governed at the omnibus level with the United Nations instruments, the peace and security architecture at the United Nations level, there are bilateral relationships that we have. With the United States, Nigeria has what is called the US-Nigeria Binational Commission. The Nigeria-US Binational Commission is involved and interested in primarily security, is interested in governance, is interested in the economy and all other matters. Unfortunately, this is where it gets very messy, and for some of us who are either to be in government, in public service, and we are scholars on the outside, we have a major concern. The level of transparency by the Nigerian state, the level of information sharing with the people, the level at which the Nigerian state engages the media on a need-to-know basis to have a shared vision and understanding of what is going on. The binational commission that we have between US and Nigeria talks about a number of things, and they have been discussing quite a number of issues. Last year, 2024, there was a major meeting that held, the conference that is supposed to hold biennially, held last year. and some of these things were discussed. Unfortunately, the Nigerian state was not transparent enough to bring most of those things to the table. The co-convening authority and co-chair of the Binational Commission happens to be the Minister of Defense. Sorry, the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Okay.
Minister of Foreign Affairs, Tuga.
Yes.
He led the conversations last year as well. The Minister of Foreign Affairs being in charge of that Binational Commission with his colleague in the United States, Marco Rubio, in charge of Secretary, or that's the Secretary of State, they always had to relate. But they had some subcommittees that ought to have been working on security and defense matters. That was where the National Security Advisor came in. Painfully, a lull occurred. If only we had shared with ourselves the details of what transpired in 2024, the ones that transpired in 2022, where some of these issues have been ongoing, the conversations have been ongoing, we will not be having the kind of misgivings and the kind of thing that Dr. Akin Baba Ahmed was trying to help us to crystallize in such a nugget that we can relate with. What are the concerns that we have? The concerns that we have is that the United States wake up to intervene within the Nigerian jurisdiction, the geopolitical space called Nigeria. No, they did not just wake up to do that, because there have been military relationships based on the Nigerian-US relationships in the last 6 decades and a half. Particularly in the last 15, 20 years, we've had the African Center for Strategic Studies, we've had the ACOTA, which is the African Contingency Operations Training Assistance of 2004, we've had the African Partnership Station 2007, we've had the Nigeria being a member of the Global Coalition to Defeat ISIS, and then the Trans-Sahara Counterterrorism Partnership since 2005. When you look at all that, you'll understand that now having a military operation involving the United States is not something that is just the whims and caprices of a certain Tinubu administration. And I'm using that advisedly. It did not start today. It is something that had progressively been ongoing. But unfortunately, because the Nigerian state has failed to meet up with the constitutional obligations of ensuring that we do the needful, of observing that the primary responsibility of a Nigerian government is the security and welfare of Nigerians. And we have not been mindful of the fact that the life of one man in Nigeria taken by another is something that must be subjected to the full weight of the legal and policy frameworks. I was on this set some time back, and I was drawing attention to the fact that when all these things occur, you have a situation where the police fails to investigate. Where the police fails to investigate, it means that they cannot prosecute. And when they do not prosecute, it means that you are leaving Nigerians, the citizenry, with the challenge of not having a closure.
Okay, now this brings me to this question. Does this give someone like President Trump to now act as an emperor? I'm sorry to use the word, because based on the conventions and all that you mentioned, meaning one country cannot just, wake up unilaterally. We didn't see a situation whereby Trump made reference to United Nations or whatever. It's like he's a monitor in a classroom of a way. Are you satisfied with the wordings he used, in a way that some feel that he bullied even Tinubu to submission? He bullied the minister to submission, who now said that, after all, we are part and parcel of what happened.
What you need to understand is this. I've just told you we have a binational commission.
But was not really managed very well back home.
Locally, we are not managing it well. I'll give you a good example. In 2024, the joint working group from the Nigerian end on security defense issues happens to be headed by a certain Malam Nuhu Ribadu. who incidentally is the Nigerian security advisor, Air. Unfortunately, the relationship between that subcommittee of the Nigerian component of the Binational Commission has not been diligent in reporting to the convening authority, who is a Minister of Foreign Affairs. And the Secretariat happens to be in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and you have something that services it in the U.S. mission here in Nigeria, apart from the one that is existing in the State Department in Washington, and equally within the Nigerian mission. Meaning, therefore, that if only we had been operating our systems the way they are supposed to operate, when committees are set up, and you do not, even though you are privileged to have a pride of place, you must always understand that within the ambits of the organic whole of a system, of a structure, you must always fit in, report, and ensure that everything is done in such a way and manner that will always bring about synchronization of the interests of the Nigerian state, which we always refer to as national interest. Once we are able to get back to that level, and you do not have arrogance being displayed by any public officer, you will see that we would have moved swiftly in the right direction. Now, the question you will ask, and Nigerians must ask and demand for an answer, what were the contents of the conversation that held with Secretary Exet in United States and a few of the people in the Congress and those of them that came here? What was the nature and character? How many of the readouts, how many of those of you in the media have been brought to speed? Ideally, when military operations like this are expected to be embarked upon, the first thing is you do information management preemptive meetings and consultations with the media. You bring them on board for shared vision. You ensure that they understand what is about to happen. They ask questions, they raise concerns. And because one thing you need to be mindful of is that for this kind of operation, we must carry the citizenry along. You must not allow your good to be evil spoken about.
Just as
what is happening
was
now.
had maybe during Buhari, because they said the conversation was a bit better then. I don't know.
It was under Jonathan that we had the best of defense, security, information management. You recall that at the National Orientation Agency those days, we used to have the information multi-platform agencies involved in security discourse. They will go there, they will engage with media people, they will engage with citizenry, and they were briefing. Now some of that element continued into the Buhari administration, and you had people like Irabo that were dovetailing from the theater, giving us a good understanding of what is going on, and being able to brief us in such a way and manner that was required. But again, we had another crisis that colluded, controverted the attempt by the Nigerian state to always share information. A number of international non-governmental organizations, civil society, started accusing the military and security establishment of human rights abuses. And that was because there was too much disclosure.
Yes.
And once you have all that, occasionally it makes things a little bit murky. But particularly concerning these US-Nigeria operations, we have not done what we needed to have done, and we've not done well in terms of operating as an organic whole and sharing information and carrying the media along to be in a position to understand the dynamics.
Okay.
When you mentioned something about President Trump.
Yes.
The messaging from President Trump, you must understand that in his own case, he has multiple audiences he's seeking to address. The Nigerian system is not addressing any audience. President Trump has to address his military hierarchical command and control structure. He has to reassure his officers on the field that they are going to be absolved of any liabilities. And that is what he said, that at my direction.
Yes, but then do you think that he was fair to Nigeria in the framing right from the beginning?
Has Nigeria been fair to itself when you operate a government without ambassadors and missions being run at the lowest ebb for 2 years plus? And when you are appointing people that all of us are asking questions about their character and integrity as ambassadors?
They came for fact-finding, and I don't know whether it was Nigerian government that failed to insist that apart from visiting Benue, they should go to Katsina, Zamfara, Borno, to also see what people are going through. So that is why some people are seeing the whole narrative as one-sided, and then maybe U.S. had made up its mind that, okay, this is how we are going to approach the matter.
When you are operating in a global space like we are, and you have multi-tiered peace and security architectures, you have the National Peace and Security Architecture for Nigeria, you have the ECOWAS Peace and Security Architecture, you have the Gulf of Guinea Peace and Security Architecture, you have the Lake Chad Basin Peace Security Architecture, you have the AU Peace Security Architecture, you have the Commonwealth, then you have the United Nations. Now, all those levels gather data, and part of the data they gather is open source. And fantastically, one of the very viable sources is the trust media. You folks do fantastic job at reportage, at packaging all this in a manner that people can relate with. You are one of the very first set of media entities to report that 20 out of 34 local governments in Katsina State had entered into pacts with these criminal elements. And you ask yourself, they keep on talking about ungoverned spaces. You add local government authorities. These local government councils have executive and legislature. These local governments has in situ police operations at divisional level. They have the SSS located therein. And mind you, Katsina State that we are talking about happened to have been the home state of at least 2 former heads of states.
Yaradua Buhari.
You have 2 former DGs of NIA, Zachary Muhammad and Ahmed Rufai. Now, if just leave it at that level, it means that when they are gathering the data, they already have enough data they are analyzing and using to project and conjecture. And those are the things that we need to be mindful of. And this is why occasionally when I sound a bit brash to those of them in the presidency managing the information system of the Nigerian state, it is not because I want to attack anybody. When I say take a look at even the statement issued by the very diligent Minister of Information and Orientation, Idris. Now, you will discover that he was not speaking to the legal and policy frameworks of the Nigerian state. You will discover that the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs reported that he had a 19-minute conversation earlier in the day with his colleague, and he was asked to correspond and take the concurring authorization and approval from the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Nigerian state. Now, they have not been able to share with us.
And that is where I really have a serious question, that are they really being transparent with Nigerians when they said they had a conversation with the U.S., even in the choosing of where to strike first? People have questions that, why Sokoto? Why not Benue?
Sir.
Where these people visited, and there is this framing that Christians are being killed in Benue. Why not Plateau? Why Sokoto, where you have more than 95% of people around that localities, all of them Muslims? Even these terrorists, they are only killing Muslims, because if you now say, okay, give me a figure, because we report that, don't you think that beyond what we see, something is actually behind the scene that maybe U.S. wants to achieve.
See, you're falling into the trap.
No, I'm not.
You fall into the trap of the framing that...
No, I'm asking you questions. Nigerians are actually asking. I'm trying to present them.
Yes, Dr. Ahmed mentioned the fact that the framing from outside...
Yes.
Mentioning one particular demography over the other is making it difficult for us to see clearly. And when you look at what you're dealing with, you're actually dealing with a conflict system. It is called the Sahelo-Saharan conflict system, meaning that you are mindful of those dynamics and insurgents and non-state actors with criminal intent that are operating from the Saharan belt into the Sahel, and they are moving downwards. And one of the places where they have found a safe haven for their operations, and it's very lucrative, is Nigeria. Now, if you look at where they are concentrated, and your media, trust, you did a very good analysis some time back, and you showed us the kind of movements that led into the Lakurawa, emanating from Mali, from Niger, from Burkina, and you showed us some elements from the Maghreb that are coming towards this place. When you take a look at the Nigerian map, where is their point of entry? Earlier on, I drew attention to the fact that what we are having that culminated in the Binational Commission of Nigeria actually had some components that had to do with the Pan-Sahelian initiative.
So probably this is what informed U.S. decision to start from.
The information and data. Please, I always want to use data. The data, because when I use data, I stay safe and I cannot be accused of using the phrase intelligence. Now, the data available indicate that if you are really interested in nipping in the bud and creating a deterrent against those who still want to come in, you must move into the axis where they normally come in from. And now, the axis where they come in predominantly from is this one. The one that all of us are very familiar with, that has become a major theater of operation, has been the northeast in the Lake Chad Basin. And they already are aware that they are always under surveillance, under attack, and it is such that we have seen that we need to act. From the northwest flank, you'll discover that if we've had casualties, it is actually from the northwest that have been very devastating. We've lost how many officers and men? We've lost how many Air Force equipments in that region?
Niger,
Zamfara axis.
Yes.
Now, if that decision, and I'm not trying to hold brief for anybody, I'm just speaking from an analytic perspective, you'll understand that going there is to say, let us create a deterrence. And this is where I come back to my original position. And I'm going to plead with Minister Idris. This is the time to rein in and activate. And some of us will be...
But he can only do that if he is availed with the relevant information.
No. What I am asking him to do, he needs to prepare a memo for consideration by the Executive Council and for the concurrent consideration at the Security and Defense Councils that will allow us to bring media editorial teams on board so that they can have opportune access to sharing with them in such a way and manner that the Defense Information Management System will go back to the level it ought to be. That we'll be talking about enlightenment, something that is in public domain, and I'll address it because I'm obliged to helping Nigerians to appreciate, and that is the fact that they are claiming that there are some things that were seen in Offa, in Jabo,
shrapnel and all
things
that.
like that. When you have an operation for which you have to use projectiles moving from a platform, which is a ship, from the Gulf of Guinea inland. It has to be propelled by some fuel energy system. And those energy systems will fall off occasionally somewhere.
Okay.
Now, when the President of the United States used the phrase precision, part of the precision is that the military team that is going to deploy must calculate to ensure that those shrapnels, when they are going to drop, must never drop on any civilian population to avoid collateral damages.
And gladly, that hasn't happened.
Now, when you understand that much, because now me and you and Nigerians are not yet discussing, and a few people are trying to ask the questions about the fact, did the munitions actually hit their targets?
Yes, where is the evidence?
Now, when you have this kind of operations, usually you want to operate with the information system principles that says right of classified disclosure and non-disclosure, and if disclosed, those you are disclosing to will not jeopardize the holistic operations that you are going to be involved in. And this is where, again, I go back to pleading with the managers of the information management system to be mindful of the fact that we need to carry people along. We need to carry the editorial.
People will understand.
So that you will not ask me
just the way I'm asking now, but I'm
question.
happy that you are able to shed some light as to why this thing happened. Unfortunately, we don't have time, but I have just 1 minute for you, and this question is very important. I don't want you to exceed 1 minute, sir.
Yes, sir.
Do you think if Trump or United States use a broader description to say people are being killed in Nigeria, the buy-in of Nigerians will have been better? And how can the federal government convince the United States going forward to look at this menace holistically instead of framing it around a certain people?
We do not have any business with President Donald Trump. The business we have is for the Nigerian state, headed by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to be mindful that the administration is leading is responsible to Nigerians and all Nigerians, and not for you to have a certain Daniel Buhala going about trying to justify that other people, other demographics are being killed. It is for us to first acknowledge, we accept and acknowledge that Nigerians are being killed, and we are mindful that the Nigerians being killed cut across the demographies, and we want to work on it.
Thank you very much. I wish we have like 2 hours with you because I have so many questions, but maybe next time.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you very much.